Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this lovely but also very useful exercise of discussing together these beautiful cards. I've chosen the card called the movement to speak today because it resonates a lot with me. I've moved a lot during my career in different ways, and I think it has helped me enormously. And so I want to invite you all of my colleagues, men and women, to strongly consider the possibility of moving in your career. I think the concept of moving throughout a career is becoming more and more natural to the new generation of people. You know, our parents, when they were lucky enough to have a job, thought of a job as a job for life, and often did the exact same thing throughout their lives. Today, we live in the gig economy and are much more familiar with the concept of movement. But in what ways has moving helped me throughout my professional life? Well, in different ways. So I did move geographically. I did move between companies, and I also, you know, in a way, opened and closed certain professional relationships as I went on. So to tell you a bit more about that, in terms of ability to move geographically, that requires quite an entrepreneurial spirit and also a flexible family setup. In my life, for example, I got married and immediately split from my husband geographically. As you know, at the very beginning of our careers, he was working in Milano, I was working in Rome, and we often met at weekends, you know, halfway in Florence or Bologna, for example, and then much more than that. You know, I worked in London, I've worked in Zurich, I worked back in Rome again. I work in different geographies now, and then obviously while doing my jobs, I also had to travel quite extensively, but that is different. So having, first of all, a type of relationship or setup that not only allowed me to move, but supported me as I was moving, required quite a lot of investment and efforts on the personal side from both myself and my husband, but it also enriched, I think, both of us immensely. And the ability to explore new working environments, new mentalities, different ways of working, required adaptation. It wasn't always easy. Usually new geographies and ways of working and cultures do not come with a manual that explains to you how to adapt. And you know, you need to be alert and perceptive and learn by doing. But I think working on the familial setup so that a change in settings and the change in geography can be contemplated, can be implemented, even though it requires sometimes sacrifices in terms of personal relationships, or sometimes in terms of income even. But you look at that as an investment that then will allow you to grow professionally and recover in a way that investment as you go forward, I think is very, very important. Of course, there are phases in life when moving becomes more difficult. For example, you may decide that if your children are of a certain age, it's best not to disrupt their ties, their environment, and to stay put. But you need to look at the long term, you know, in a career that for all of us will be 40, 50 years. There are times when you can afford to move, and when it does just require a bit of courage. Having explicit conversations within the family, with the children, with sometimes, I don't know, the elderly parents you leave behind, for example, is very, very important in creating the right setup and the right compensation mechanisms to be able to move. You know, I'm now in the latter part of my professional career. When I left my husband to go and work in Rome because I had an opportunity I couldn't pass, there was no internet, there was no WhatsApp, no FaceTime. And making calls between two cities was very, very expensive. But we did that investment, and it definitely paid off. At a later stage, when I moved to Switzerland to work, I left my family behind in the UK. I had teenage children at the time. And again, having very clear conversations on what we both needed to do to keep the relationships we had vibrant and alive was very, very important. Professionally was definitely the right thing for us to do. So geographical movement, very, very important. But also the second type of movement within a company, within our environment, or between companies, is also very important. And my rule of thumb has always been that I would stay in a job or in a role as long as I was learning and feeling that I was positively contributing something new in my professional life. And when that was coming to an end, because I had gotten and given as much as possible, then it was time to move. So how does one create the possibility of moving in a career? Well, it's having the explicit conversation. It's being clear about what else you would like to do, and so having conversations with different people, you know, within the company about what they do, observing what they do, understanding why we might think that we would find that more exciting. I don't know, in our case, it could be moving from an R&D position to a sales support position. You know, why is that? Why is it that what I have done enables me to do the next thing better, for example? But it's also investing to learn new skills. In my case, at some stage in my career, you know, as a background, I have a degree in physics. I worked in the corporate world for a long time, learning on the job, so to speak. But there came a point where I was missing certain tools and I decided to invest in an MBA. And I did an executive MBA, which means that I did it while working. I couldn't afford, to stop earning for 2 years. So I did that while working and raising a family that required immense sacrifices financially, and especially on my free time. Right, there was very little social time for a long time, because I was either studying or devoting time for my family. But again, that's an investment that paid off immensely and meant that I had the language and the tools to sit at the top table, to be able to have a peer-to-peer discussion with the CFO, for example, or a marketing executive or an HR executive, because I had learned at least the basic ropes of what they were doing through my investment in studying. You don't always need to get a second degree in order to change. It's just an extreme example to say, particularly today, when there are hundreds of tools, internet tools, master classes, MOOCs available, you need to invest in the new skills that you will need in the new job or role you want to take before having the conversations again with your peers, with your HR department, with your boss, on the fact that in due course you would like to move, and you would like to move in a certain direction. On this, I want to make a point. Very often people are very scared to have a conversation with their boss on the fact that they actually want to change and come away from what they're doing. I think that in most companies nowadays, having the conversation with the boss is actually very, very helpful, because he or she can then provide for you the experiences and coaching and learning that will equip you to make the jump when the opportunity comes. So I've always been very much in favor of full transparency from this point of view. Obviously, you need to have the conversation in time and in due course, and say, look, in maybe a year time, 18 months, I would like to move within the company and to grow. What do we need to do together to make that happen? Do you think it's a good idea? Your boss could see in you capabilities that you are not even aware you have. So I think, again, transparency is useful. But in order to move, you have to invest. And then the final move, there comes a point when we need to close a certain situation. And in my experience, I've closed many different situations. I've done many different things in my life. I changed companies, I changed countries, and the best way of ending something and starting a new one, it's again when that is not done out of frustration, for example, but out of a positive choice. The healthiest changes are the ones where you walk towards something and not away from a situation. And so this is linked to what I was saying earlier. You need to understand where you want to go and prepare your move, and then be able to close a situation, say warm goodbyes to the people you've walked with for a piece of your journey. They are immense assets. I'm still in touch with so many people from so many different work experiences I've had, and they now constitute my network, which is, of course, perhaps my most valuable asset. So again, coming to a conclusion of a journey in, our parents' generation was seen as something dramatic. We should, I think, nowadays come to see it as something natural. It's like having done a hike together, and that comes to an end, and everyone moves on to the different thing, and doesn't mean that we all need to continue to stay together. The best situation, obviously, is when you are able and enabled to do that change within your own company. Your former colleagues are there, and they know and support you, and your new ones will also support you in raising to the next stage. So I think if I had not moved, if I had not had the courage sometimes to make choices that seemed risky or crazy to me, I would have not gained all that I gained. So in conclusion, my invitation to you is to be bold, to find the courage, and usually, and in most instances, from moving, you will reap a great reward. Thank you very much.